Yo, Red City. In this video we will review your most fundamental punches. Those are 1 through 6 is what we've numbered them here at the gym. So basically what we'll cover are your straight punches, your 1 and your 2, and then your curved punches, which will be your hooks and your uppercuts. Now, every other punch that you throw beyond these 6 punches will be some hybrid or some variation of the following punches. So this will be just, again, the 6 punches we throw in boxing. As you go through the essentials classes, you will be taught each of these punches on into the Box 1 classes, which is when you will start to pick up even more of the other punches, like your straights to the body, your hooks and uppers to the body. But this will be our focus for today. You can use this video as kind of a quick reference if you're just kind of learning and you want to be clear in your head about the 6 basic punches, or if you want to do a punch review, or even as part of your warm-up. You can add it to footwork, or maybe one day use it to replace footwork, just to give yourself a little bit of time to really focus on your punch mechanics. So the first punch we're going to start with is the jab. I'm going to be standing in my orthodox stance. If you're a southpaw, the mechanics are all going to be the same, but in reverse, right? So you will be throwing your jab with your right hand instead of your left hand, because that's the hand that will be out in front. Or if you're a right-hander who chooses to fight southpaw, that's how you'll do it. Jab is the number 1. You would just stand, you'll be in your stance. A lot of people have the tendency to pull their left hand in close. It's not wrong, it can be a personal preference. Generally, we like to teach you to stand in a more, what might be called a traditional stance, with your jab hand coming out just a little bit, as the jab is used primarily to measure distance, but also to set up your combinations and interrupt your opponent's momentum, etc. But if we have it hanging out forward here a little bit, then we are already starting to manage distance. So the jab, back ball of the foot is up, front foot stays down. You're pressing through the balls of your feet, but your back heel is up and your front heel stays down. We're going to shoot that punch straight forward and over. So the elbow comes up and we drop it and turn it over. Punches should get turned over in boxing. Now, throw a few of those. Jab goes straight ahead, and I'll point out some of the mechanics here as we go. We want the jab to travel along the 12 o'clock line. That means straight ahead. We don't want it to move across our bodies in front of us, nor to pop it upward, right? Straight down the line, elbow comes up, punch gets turned over. As I throw this, the crossbar that is my shoulders, the clavicle, these bones right here underneath my neck there, as I turn into my jab, I'm anchoring or pressing my elbow into my rib cage, and my right shoulder comes back. A couple of other points with the jab before we move on to the cross. Keep the heel down. Don't be flat on your heels, but keep that heel pressed down. People will have the tendency to bend the front knee and either just bend and let it dip forward when they throw, or they will turn it as if they are throwing a hook. Don't do that. We're sending the force of our punch, the energy that we're driving forward, straight ahead, and back. So when you throw the jab, try to work on keeping a stable knee instead of a wobbly front knee. This is going to transfer into all of the rest of your punching combinations, movement around the ring, and help you develop a nice snappy jab. So as you throw that, I'll give you a few more reps. arm forward and back. Now, the leg does get some rotation. I am just not redirecting that force this way. I am keeping my front foot more, keeping it more stable, keeping it more kind of anchored in that punch. All right, now we're going to throw the cross. When you throw the cross, with the jab, we aim the jab at the eyes as a reminder. If I hit you anywhere in the face, that is a scoring blow. The benefit of aiming at the eyes is I momentarily blind you, and that is a prime opportunity to set up, to help me set up other punches to land. Now we're going to move on to the cross. With the cross, we are going to turn the back foot. We're going to drive the hips, right, so that the foot is steering us, and helping to stabilize us. The hips are driving or motoring that movement, and then we're punching straight down the line again. We want these straight punches to be laser straight down the middle. Elbow comes up, and we rotate over. Straight down the line, I turn that punch over, try to get that middle knuckle on target, and I pull it all the way back to reholster it. Again, I'm in the back heel is up, so I'm on the balls of my feet. Front heel stays down. That front leg is going to anchor me again. I am not bending. I want to avoid bending this knee as I drive the punch, so I don't have the force of my punch spilling out in that knee joint, for example. I want it to drive up through my body, get delivered through my arm, at the end of my fist, into my target. So I turn the back foot. What people have a tendency to do here is they will have a tendency to come up on their toe. Not very balanced on the toe. Not much we can do way up on the tips of our toes there unless you're a trained ballerina. That most of us aren't able to be very effective there. So what we want instead is, just as if you were walking, when you walk, we will tend to have our foot be placed and generate that force forward, transferring it to the next foot. That's more of what we want, is that effect there. When I throw that cross, I'm not completely off of my back foot. I have a fair amount of weight still there. So I'm maintaining my balance and keeping myself in a position to do the next thing, which is to punch or move. So turn that foot. Now I also don't want to overturn it. I'm going to say if when you turn it, your toe is pointed to about 12 o'clock, that's plenty. So those are the more common things I see people do, is when they throw that with their foot, they will come up to the toe, not be active on that foot. Sometimes they'll overturn. Sometimes they don't turn at all, which keeps them from being able to drive force into that punch, and then it makes it harder still to be able to set up a good hook after that too, which is a punch we will commonly throw behind the cross. And then again, with that straight punch, we do not want to cross our bodies. We instead want to deliver that punch straight down the 12 o'clock line, as straight as we can make it. Now we're going to move on to the hook, and when throwing, when learning the hook or practicing the hook, I like to have you set up at the end of your cross so that you can really take a moment there to feel that you're balanced and load it up in a good position to throw your hook. So your hand is at the face, which also provides great defense. Elbows into the rib cage. You've turned your hips, you've turned the back foot, and now you're going to drive your weight off of this front leg. Turn the hips, raise the elbow as you pull the right hand back, just like so. Go back into the cross and hook. Now, here, a little controversial in some ways. I'm not turning my front foot very much. Now, sometimes if I know I want to get some pivot action, I may turn that foot, and that's okay. But just like when we throw the cross, what we want to avoid is coming way up on our toes and turning that foot. It's not a very effective place to punch from. We're losing a lot of force, and I would even say that it will make it longer or harder for us to quickly shift or transition our weight from one foot to the next when we want to throw the next punch or we want to move. So we turn here. Again, we're going to drive the weight off of this front leg. Shifting our weight back is another way to put it. So when we put it that way, we're going to turn our hips, shift our weight back, raise the elbow, and look to aim these knuckles into our target, smash through our target. Now if you're turning your foot, again, that's okay, but make sure that you're kind of driving around off the ground so you're generating some force off of there instead of kind of mindlessly coming up on your toes. We want to stay nice and connected to the ground. Last note on the hook, people can tend to be a little slow. They'll start turning into their hook and they'll keep turning their back foot and drop it when their toe hits somewhere past like 3, 4, 5 o'clock. We want to instead drop that heel immediately. As a matter of fact, before our punch lands, so we have a place that's going to quickly anchor that punch. 2 and 3. I drop it right away as I shift my weight into that hook. So we got that. Last note on the hook. We want to have a little greater than 90 degrees in the elbow so that we don't miss our target. I'm not going to go off on this tangent too much, so I'm going to post a separate hook video. But people will tend to keep their elbow at 90 degrees or less, and so when they are trying to hit the target, they will either just skim the target, causing the bag to spin, or miss it entirely. So be mindful. Those are some things you can practice in practicing your hook. So 2, 3 is a good way to start practicing your hook. Next, we're going to move on to the right hook. We won't spend a lot of time here. We can cover this in other videos and when we're working on combinations. The reason why we don't teach you the right hook super early on, or we don't spend a lot of time with it, is because it takes some practice to work on, to become proficient at throwing a straight cross, which is what we want. Straight cross down the middle. People will tend to kind of loop it or be a little wild with it. And then you introduce this right hook, and what happens is they're a little confused about what they're throwing, and their right hand becomes this big haymaker instead of a nice straight cross down the middle. Hook is going to be almost like the cross and the left hook, got together and had a baby. We're going to turn that back foot. We're really going to drive the hips, and that punch is going to come around the guard. Now, just like the 3, we're aiming for the 2 and the 3, and now the 4, we're aiming for the chin. So jab's the 1, cross is the 2, hook is number 3, comes around the guard to land on the chin, and the 4 comes around the guard to also land on the chin. That's the ideal place we'll land. And you just come right around. So right from here, what we want to do in any of our punches is to minimize the amount of time that our hand spends away from our face. For the jab, in the jab, for example, we don't want to drop the jab and throw, or pull the cross away and start to throw, or drop it and start to throw. We want to throw from the face. It's the same thing with the hook to the body. As we throw that hook to the body, we're going to drive the hips, turn the back foot, and come around our target. And as my punch comes around, boom, I raise that elbow, shift the weight forward, just around the target. Sometimes I tell people to pretend there's a little post there to come around, that they can come around, so it reads less like a wild, straight punch. That's a little something you can work on. Now, the uppers. Uppers, all of these punches aside from the jab are going to be aimed at the chin. As I throw my uppercut, I can even aim for right underneath the chin if I want to. If I hit you in the mouth, I'm pretty happy about that too. But let's start with our number 5. So we've covered 1, 2, 3, and 4. We work on number 5, which is our lead uppercut. For orthodox fighters, that will be your left hand, and for southpaws, that will be your right hand. When you're throwing that lead uppercut, we want to make sure that that front foot, once again, is ready. We want to be active on our feet in general at all times when we're boxing, particularly when we're sparring or in competition. We want to have that front foot active, feet kind of splayed, really feeling the floor, heel down. I'm going to get a little seat into this hip. Now, for me, I have a lot of experience boxing, so I can really generate a fair amount of force with very small shift forward, or off that, even without much of a shift, I can really pop something up. The less experience you have, the more you may need to kind of turn to sit into this hip. And we're going to spring load this entire front side, keeping the hand close to the guard. And I'm going to, I'm sitting, I'm going to turn and spring up the middle. Boom. I'm driving the force, driving the ground away off that front leg while keeping contact with that back leg. Up the middle. Up the middle, up the middle. Now I'll give you a side view because what will tend to happen anytime we throw a lead punch, a lead, I'm going to say, this can happen with the hook as well. It certainly happens with the uppercut, the 7, and the 3. We're not getting into the 7 today, but a little cliffhanger for you. What can tend to happen is people will crowd their uppercut, their lead uppercut, meaning that they don't get enough leverage into the punch. They don't give themselves maybe a little more reach into the punch. So pay attention as I sit here. I'm sitting, which was the first cue I gave you, to spring load this hip. I can feel my weight into the ground on this front leg. I'm going to drive up off that leg, and I'm going to turn the hips at the same time. If there's something else I'm doing, as if this crossbar were actually a crowbar, I'm going to, again, I'm driving up off the leg, turning the hips, and this crowbar, as I shift that, actually his back shoulder comes back and down. Back and down. Now if you notice, I end up with a little bit of reach, and if I want, I can actually throw that upper from more of a distance if I wanted to. But I'm getting a little bit of reach, more reach into that punch, more so than kind of crowding my punch right here, not giving it an opportunity to really develop. So something to bear in mind and something to work on if your punch is feeling a little flat. Play around with how long you can make that punch while making it, again, come up the middle. It is an uppercut. It's not a hook. So we're trying to read or get that punch to drive straight up the middle. Pop that head right up. Also, final note on this one, we're going to move on to the last punch, number 6. Do not turn your foot on this. It's not a hook. It's an uppercut. We are directing the force up the middle. So it's not necessary. It's actually contrary to the punch to turn that front foot. I actually don't turn it very much at all. Okay? Now, the rear uppercut, the number 6, we're going to sit, turn, and spring up the middle. Sit, turn, and spring up the middle. I can throw this a little shorter or a little longer. Front foot's anchoring me. Anytime I throw my right hand, that front foot is going to be placed down real strong, as if someone was trying to shove me over and I didn't want to go. I didn't want to get pushed over. I'm going to really place that foot down real strong so I can, I can direct the force that I'm creating, I'm generating in my body, through my body to the end of my punch onto my opponent. So again, I take that little seat, right? I'm not turning back. I often will see people will turn back, then they'll do the scoop motion, which I call it the scoop, where they'll drop their hand and then they'll come up underneath. So they come back and underneath. Or they just stand here and they drop their hand and come up. So a recipe for possibly aggravating that bicep. We don't want that. Instead, you can just make sure that when you sit, you get a little shift into that right side of the back side of your body, for those southpaws, back side of the body, and then just turn the hips as you spring the leg up into the target. Now, I'm getting a little shift back and up. I can get a little slip off of this. It could also be used to take a little step forward and set something up on the other side. We're not getting into all that. But there you have it. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let me know what feedback you have, what questions you have. Always a good idea to break things down, make sure that you're tending to all of your most fundamental aspects of your boxing.